Merry Christmas everyone, welcome back to the Frugal Gardener. There's not been much going on in the garden, and if yours is anything like mine, which is solid clay, it's been somewhat underwater. But I just thought I'd do some catching up for Christmas. In the greenhouse at the moment, there's quite a lot of plants in here that I've put in for the winter. The only problem I seem to have is the fact that the heating is costing me an absolute fortune. Unfortunately, a lot of the plants that I have in the greenhouse, especially geraniums, aren't doing too well because things like geraniums suffer considerably from botrytis. I don't know if you're aware of this, but can you see the dieback on this geranium? This is caused mainly by the fact that it's not warm enough. Geraniums love to be at a temperature no less than 50 Fahrenheit or about 10 centigrade, ideally 10 to 15, 50 to 60 Fahrenheit. What happens, you get this botrytis growing on the stems, and if you don't, you can see the spores on that. If you don't take this off or get rid of it, then it's going to cause terrible problems. So all the time you really need to keep going around the greenhouse, taking off all the yellow leaves, all the dead leaves, take off all the things that have got botrytis on them. You can see the botrytis coming. This is because the temperature isn't warm enough. So I have moved about 30 of my geraniums into the house, and they're now on windowsills, somewhere light, and they're already responding. The botrytis has stopped and they're looking quite good. So keep an eye on these. It's not just geraniums. There are lots of things that can suffer from things like botrytis, and one of the best ways of getting rid of them is to make sure you've got a really good air circulation. So you really need to keep the windows ventilated. This again is going to affect your heating, because if it's cold out, like on a day like today where the temperature's only just getting up to 5 degrees, then you're going to have problems. You either turn the heating down or keep it on, and it's quite a battle, and it's quite a juggling act to get things just right. Most of the canna lilies that I had from last year I've potted up. I've not watered these. I want to keep the corms really not too dry, but I don't want them wet, so you would keep them quite warm in the winter, and then as soon as the spring comes, these will start to take off and sprout. You can take them off and put them in something else, put them in a dry mixture, wood shavings or something like that over winter, and then pot them up in the spring. But I find this works just as well to pot them up ready in fresh soil, ready for next year. I did have trouble with aphid, as you can probably see from that, but I sprayed that and that's got rid of the aphid. It's amazing how aphid finds their way into the greenhouse. Green fly, black fly. Always keep an eye open for them, because otherwise they'll take over before you know it. Here I have a banana, which I'm hoping will survive. Last year's didn't. You need to keep them dry, so have to make sure that the soil doesn't get wet. And so far it seems all right. I've fleeced them. The temperature in here isn't dropping below freezing, so that's the best thing to do there. I'm still propagating for the winter some of the Senecio or Senecio, whichever way you want to call it. This is angel wings. These were cuttings I took around about end of October. One or two things aren't doing too well. The osteospermum there didn't particularly like this hot weather, this are being propagated at this time of the year, but it's experimental. You just have to see what you can do. But as I say, you need to go around, check your plants, take off any dead, diseased leaves that are on. Echeverias are doing really well. Most of them I've propagated this year. They'll produce those little plantlets that I showed you earlier on. I potted them up, and they're doing really well. So I can form quite a nice bed of different things. Either use them as an edger all round to give you some definition on the edge of a border or whatever. I took some cuttings of this begonia, which was in the hanging baskets, which did so well last year, and those cuttings, this is the first year I've got them to survive. Normally it's too cold. It's a question of, do you put the heating up? I know my heating bill this month was £160 for gas and electric, which is a reasonable amount. When they say the average is somewhere around about 100 to 130, ours is well above the average. So it's weighing these things up. Is it cheaper to rebuy? If you've got a full greenhouse, then no, it's not cheaper to rebuy. But it's up to you and up to the individual. As I say, if you can get them in the house on the windowsills. For years my wife wouldn't let me, but now she's capitulated, and she's really into house plants at the moment, so she doesn't mind there being a bit of greenery in the house. And the geraniums will flower through the winter and give you a reasonable amount of colour. So that's a real advantage, and I've got them in front of my patio windows on the sill at the base of the window, and they're looking really nice at the moment, and they will do well. But as I say, anything that's diseased with botrytis, then you need to cut them off down to some sort of good growth where you haven't got any. So with something like this, that particular limb there, I would cut off further down back to some healthy tissue and see what happens. But they're not doing great once the temperature drops below, as I say, 50 Fahrenheit or 10 centigrade. There's lots of projects that need doing. I did start my pond. This because it's been such a mild winter so far, this tree isn't suffering at all, and it looks like the pruning idea I've done, the start of it is working quite well. So come the spring I'm going to carry on with this and then define the branches a bit more. Now I know it's going to work, and it'll be quite interesting to see if I can lollipop these and make them look something quite special. And if that works, that will be quite a saving. I've got an old tub here that I've filled up with rainwater. There's no shortage of rainwater at the moment, so an old dustbin, and that'll be ideal for the greenhouse. It saves me going all the way down to the other end of the garden to get stuff. So that's about it for the moment. The garden's looking reasonably well. As I say, I can't get on it at the moment because it's so wet. Most of the borders had water lying in them, and I gather we're due gales and some torrential rain tonight, so the edges of these will all fill up again with water, so the ground is too wet to do anything. The salvias are still flowering. I mean, for this time of year it's remarkable because these are usually dead by now and we cut them down, but things are doing really well. There's more salvias there. I can't wait to get some reasonably dry period, and then I can get out here and do some raking and mulching and get things looking better. So for now I'll just say goodbye and we'll catch up again fairly soon. Okay, take care, bye.